Good morning, brothers and sisters. Welcome to National Family Service. I am so glad to have you here. I'm Yoshie, and I will be your host for today. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are an international family and movement founded by Father and Mother Moon, whom we affectionately call our two parents. Their life mission has been to build a world of peace centered around the marriage blessing and God-centered families. You can learn more by typing #Connect in the Facebook chat or visiting nationalfamilyservice.org. And with that, let's go ahead and kick it off with our opening song.
Let's make our way to Los Angeles, California, to sing along with the Los Angeles Band as they play the song, When I Behold the Lord.
Dies the world.
Thank you, Los Angeles Band, for that opening song. Now let's join Reverend Tom Corley for our opening prayer.
Dear brothers and sisters, please join me in the opening prayer today. Our dear Heavenly Parent, America was your concept and creation and is still a work in progress. It's a gigantic effort to provide harmony and justice to all people of the world, regardless of race, nationality, or religion. In order for America to accomplish this mandate and responsibility, it needs to understand your principles and start applying them. Through this, every individual can connect with your heavenly heart and thus realize horizontal harmony. This is possible because you, our Heavenly Parent, are one, completely harmonized entity of true love. Our true parents have invested a huge portion of their lives here in America, as they saw it was the quickest route to saving the whole world. For us who know God's providence, it's our responsibility to inform as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, that complete salvation, meaning salvation for the family, is now available. For the first time in history, all aspects of love can now be restored and be properly fulfilled, according to our Creator's ideal. This is the wonderful gift that our true parents have brought to this earth, leading by their own example. We thank you, our Father, for educating, our true Father, for educating, organizing, and mobilizing our ancestors and all others in the spirit world, and true Mother, for continuing to guide us here on earth until your sovereignty is firmly established on this earth for all eternity. We thank you, our true parents, for sending us their great ambassador, Dr. Young, to lead America in this final stretch of heaven's providence. However, he cannot do it all by himself. We must add our hands, feet, and voices to the chorus of heavenly children, proclaiming the true parents' arrival and the fulfillment of our Creator's ideal on this earth. In addition, I would like to offer this prayer for our sermon giver today, President Oshiroda, whose topic is loving your enemy. This topic is the essence of Christianity. It is also the essence of the unification movement and the essence of our Heavenly Parent. I offer this prayer in my name, Tom Corley, of the Corley Blessed family, and all of us attending our National Family Service today, September 19th, 2021. Adieu and Amen.
Next, let's go to Minneapolis, Minnesota to hear an original song performed by Manny Lucas titled Love Song.
Serenaded by shallow love songs all over. Frequencies like my report cards. Rich cities to them ghettos you wouldn't walk down. Real love amongst mixed couples be getting shot down. Who do you love in your circle? Would you be able to love somebody like Urkel? How many people in your circle look just like you? What kind of love do you aspire to? Permeate in the state of a fake state of heart. Generate real love. Most people just taste parts, and I think that most don't even know what it means yet. Cause what is love if not everybody receives it?
As we've come together, we're determined to help others be where we're at. We're not perfect by any means, but we're trying, and we want others to feel that too. That feeling is because we've created so much of that within us. For me to think that someone doesn't feel that love, or they don't feel that important, that hurts.
Now my eyes are open. How'd I find this moment? It's like the fabric of our lives are interwoven. Minds are open. We combine emotions. We find our energies and we combine her tokens. Enemies are hopeless. That's their pride that's broken. We provide the fire, and that's a vibe to smoking. While you smiling, joking. I got cousins on the other side that's lives is broken by hurricanes and oceans. I'm surprised you're open. Most people don't leave their own kinds of persons to marry crossing cultures. An awesome person, but does God think when people look past the differences and try to stop the hurting? Yeah. And that's a deep line. My parents married knowing they were finna have hard times, but the legacy finna live longer like 9 lives, cause I inherited something valuable up in my
We
life.
can transfer our love that we have so much of, then that will give them enough to create a positive, meaningful life, not only with them individually, but they can see our relationship, our marriage, and put that love into their own marriage. My heart just wants them to feel loved and needed, no matter their background, their culture, whatever it might be. I want them to have that love that we had.
Wow. A big thank you to the Los Angeles Family Church and to Manny Lucas for those wonderful performances, and also to Reverend Corley for the opening prayer. And thank you to you brothers and sisters for your great comments. Let's see. We had Marie Bond said, "Good morning and happy autumn season." We have John Kirkley tuning in from Kenya. Hello to Kenya. And let's see, Kathy Ann said, "Wow, what a great holy song with tenderness." And loved that first song. And then we have so many comments about Manny's singing too. I think I saw Dr. Rouse say, "Rap the truth." Love it. Okay. So now it's my pleasure to welcome our Family Federation President in America, Naokimi Ushiroda, for our main message today. Welcome, President Naokimi.
Happy Sunday, everybody. It's good to see everyone. Thanks for joining again. Last week, we talked about sharing our blessed family culture. And a big part of establishing this blessed family culture is dealing with difficult relationships. You know, this week, I had the chance to reflect on all kinds of relationships within my own family, also between different groups of people that hate each other. Today, I wanted to share some examples of key figures who really dealt with this issue of loving one's enemy, and why we might even consider doing the same thing ourselves, and how we can apply that in our lives. Let's take a look at some examples of loving your enemy. Probably the most famous example is Jesus. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." This is in Luke. It's a famous message where really, I mean, just imagine being a righteous and compassionate person, doing the will of God, taking care of others, you know, sharing the good word, even sharing food, healing people, and then at the same time being persecuted and wrongfully condemned, even sentenced to death. How would you feel? And let's also imagine from God's viewpoint, you know, watching his very son that God sent to save and help the people, only to have them decide to kill him. How would God feel in that kind of situation? So what's amazing about Jesus is that not only did he forgive the people that were basically killing him, but he was pleading to God to forgive them, knowing how God felt witnessing his own son's crucifixion. There's this depth of heart and understanding between Jesus and God that's so amazing, that even though he was going through the suffering himself, he was more concerned about the people and about how God was feeling in that very moment. So I feel like this is the epitome of this example of this filial heart that one could have towards God. Let's look at another example. This is from Father Moon's life. Mother is actually sharing this story in her memoir. My husband once saved the life of a Japanese prison guard who had severely tortured him. When Korea was liberated in 1945, this policeman could not find a way to return to Japan. He went into hiding, but some Koreans found him and were intent on killing him. He took it upon himself to free Mr. Hara and get him on a small boat heading out of the country in the middle of the night. So this is another unbelievable example of forgiveness. I mean, if you are killed, then you don't really have a chance to get revenge. But imagine having the opportunity to punish the one who tortured you, who hurt you. Or even, you don't have to even punish them yourself. You might just let karma do it for you. It's his circumstances. He did do what he did, so he deserves to die, or he deserves to get tortured because he tortured other people. But instead, not only did Father forgive him, but imagine going out of your way to save the very person that tortured you. Again, I can't think of anyone else who has done something like this. Really, I even Google searched, forgiving your enemy examples, and I couldn't find any other examples. Let's read another example of loving your enemy. This is from Mother Moon's memoir. Before setting foot in North Korea, we had to resolve any painful feelings knotted up in our hearts. We had to forgive Kim Il-sung, whose regime had hurt the nation and world, not to mention our extended family and ourselves. If we had thought of him only as our enemy, we could not have forgiven him. Only in the position of his parents, only with the heart of his mother could I forgive. With that heart, I pledged to forgive my enemy. I did not pray for a safe return from North Korea. Amazing. I mean, let's say you're married to this amazing man of God, and you know that the person that you're meeting has attempted to kill your beloved husband. Would you be willing to risk your life? Allow your husband to risk his life? To go and not only forgive, but convey God's word to the leader of a communist nation? I mean, that's crazy, right? Could you see that kind of person with a mother's eyes, a parental perspective, and love him with a mother's heart? I think if either of them, Mother Moon or Father Moon, had any ounce of enmity towards Kim Il-sung during that time of meeting, then this meeting would not have been successful. It was only because of this sincere heart of connection, forgiveness, and love from God's viewpoint that that meeting could have ever even happened. And it's really hard to even imagine. So it's great that we have these kinds of examples of loving your enemy, but the question that we have to ask ourselves was, why would we even want to do that? It seems so illogical, so difficult. Why would you even want to do that? So let's go back to scriptures for some insights. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. This is in Romans chapter 12. Verse 17, 18, and 21. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So according to this passage, one reason to love your enemies is to avoid becoming overcome with evil yourself. This is really like a classic, how do I say, like a thought of good and evil, dilemma, the good and evil dilemma. If you try to fight evil with evil, you will have already lost. for you would become the very thing you're trying to fight. And as difficult as it is, the only way to overcome evil is with goodness. That's what this passage is saying. It makes sense, but it's so difficult to practice, right? So let's read another passage. This is, let's read. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. So according to Jesus, another reason to love your enemies is to resemble God, to be as God is, as his children, who cares for all people equally, regardless of if they're evil or good, righteous or unrighteous. God is providing the same sun, the same rain to all people. Again, easier said than done, but I think Jesus can say this because he's actually practiced that very concept in his life. One more reason I'd like you to consider why you should love your enemies is for you to find peace within yourself. I remember one powerful saying from Buddha where he said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You know, resentment is really poison for your soul. The only way to get rid of it is through forgiveness and letting it go. So although many times it may make sense or it's fair to be angry or resentful towards those that hurt you, by holding on to that, it's actually hurting yourself. Okay, so let's try to apply this principle of loving your enemies in our own lives. First, I wanted to share this interesting quote from Father Moon, which I found very relevant to the turmoil that we're experiencing during these times. When the last days come, even your mother and father will be your enemies. Your siblings will be your enemies. A time will come when global trends are tossed about as if in a raging storm, and we can neither discern our direction nor distinguish between what is good and what is false. Now is that very time. This passage really jumped out at me because I feel like the political divides in America are really tearing families apart and communities as well. You know, children are going against their parents because of differing political views. Spouses are at odds with each other. Friendships are broken, and whole communities are divided based on political views, all based on this kind of ideological positioning towards each other. And to augment these kind of conflicts, the surge of fake news and biased media basically encourages one-sided thinking and polarization, making the story us versus them, black versus white, you know, right versus left. And if you really think about it, who is really winning this battle? You know, we've all experienced this in our own families and our communities, but in the end, no one actually wins these battles. Just conflict and evil itself is winning. So more than ever before, we really need to learn to forgive, love, and unite, especially with those who disagree with you, hurt you, betray you, and or actively opposed or hostile towards you. That is the only way to peace. I want to share a few stories just to elaborate a little bit on this. Again, these aren't perfect examples, but just a personal example. I remember one time, actually it was recent, when I was basically about a month after I became the president of Family Federation, most people were, the usual, just acknowledging and appreciating, congratulating me on taking on this new mission. But one of my kind of friends or colleagues from way back when, she gave me a call, and she was furious. She was furious that I had accepted this kind of mission, and she was questioning my motives. She was saying, "Why would you take on such a mission?" She challenged my motive, saying, do I want more position, more power, more influence? More that I'm ambitious. It's like she couldn't understand why I would take on such a role. And I felt really misunderstood. And so I kind of, at one point, I lashed back at her and said, like, well, what are you doing with your life? And she totally snapped back at that and saying, how could you even say such a thing? And, you think you're better than me, or these kind of energy. So fighting back only put more oil to the fire. And even one point she said, like, you can't say that, you're the president. And I remember feeling so like, this is not fair. How come we had to play with different rules? How come she could criticize me, but I couldn't criticize her back? But I realized that, after we concluded the call, I remember like for a half day or a full day, I was like out of commission. Like I was just like trying to process, digest, reflect, check my own motivations, even think like, is this even worth it? But I found that the only way I could move forward was to really try to understand where she's coming from. Her concerns, she was concerned about my family. And she was concerned about all the challenges that would come in this kind of role, especially when, she felt that certain things were not healthy in our organization. And why would I take on such a role? So I tried to find the goodness in her, and find a way to forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine. And ultimately, I did leave with this point of being grateful that she would take the time to even think, to be concerned, and to give me the call and to challenge me in this way, to really make me reflect on, why am I doing this? Why am I taking on this kind of role at this time? So that was one example of really being challenged, and having to kind of digest, understand, and forgive someone who was really close to me, for what she said. One more example is, this was a little while ago, but it's still relevant today. I remember during my I was participating in a mission program called STF, Special Task Force. I did 1 year. They were supportive. When I was deciding to do my second year, my parents were really adamantly against it. And understandably so. I mean, they were concerned that I would continue my missions and never go back to school. Now, I had already completed 1 year of college, but I had taken a leave of absence to go on this missions program. And I think they were really concerned that if I go this way and continue for another year, that I would never, go back to school. So, but this was the first time I remember where my parents' will and my own understanding of God's will for me was in conflict with each other. And so it was very personally challenging and even traumatic to see the difference, that my parents' perspective may be different from what God has in mind. So I experienced this feeling of my own parents being my enemy, or being really against what I felt I needed to do. Anyway, that experience, again, I was still in my early 20s at that time. So I didn't quite understand them. I felt hurt, they felt hurt. And for almost a decade, even, we couldn't, especially my mom and I was like mama's boy and always listening to what she was saying. So we couldn't talk to each other for over a decade. So yeah, this is interesting because the closest relationships tend to be where we find the greatest challenges in relationships many times. So when we say loving your enemy, it's not always an outside force or just someone who is politically against you, but it's also within your own family, within your closest relationships is many times where we have to practice this principle. Long story short, right now, in a position where my parents are in my care, in my family's care, and we're able to kind of be in a position of taking care of them. And so it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's completely resolved, but I feel like this is an opportunity for me to not just understand and forgive, but to practice loving on them. And so, yeah, it's interesting. It's an ongoing thing, but I just felt this was an example of how to practice loving or restoring important relationships. Third story I'd like to share is when I was, when I accepted my role as president, my wife was really unhappy, and maybe that's even a nice way of saying it. And it was understandable because she knew how it would affect our family. I would be put in a very public position. I'd be very busy. It would reduce our time, so many things. And so I knew it would be difficult for her, but I also felt called. Again, it was a situation where we do have differences and our sense of calling to this mission. And so we had to figure out how to deal with it. First, of course, trying to understand each other from where we're coming from. But one thing I realized was it's not enough to just understand and forgive, but you just simply have to work it out and work towards unity. Being president did not excuse me from my duties as a husband or father. And same thing for her. Not agreeing with my choice didn't excuse her from being a wife and mother. So we had to work out those differences, getting better at communicating our schedules, making sure that I help around the house when I can, taking time to make sure I can, still take her out on dates and squeezing in family trips here and there. All of that in order to do my mission, to do my calling, I need to also continue to maintain my role as a husband, as a father. And I am truly grateful, thank you, honey, that she really stayed with me and stepped up in caring for the kids, caring for my parents. That's another thing that she's really helped with. And even watching these sermons, I feel a lot of support by her doing that. So, yeah, I just want to end with saying, all of these examples are just to share that, loving your enemy is not something that's normal or easy to do, but it's necessary. It's necessary to restore important relationships. And it really takes effort. It really takes a spiritual sense and intention for healing and reconciliation to try to understand the other person and work it out towards unity, despite our differences, despite our differing beliefs, to still work towards forgiveness and unity and love. So here are some tips on how to work on those relationships. This is something that I try to gather from my own experiences and also from scripture. So let's read. The capacity to forgive your enemy and save his or her life does not appear overnight. It requires that we eliminate the resentment and anger in our hearts and see the countenance of God in the face of our enemy. This is from Mother of Peace. So here are some quick tips. First is that we need to eliminate resentment and anger in our hearts and master our own inner conflicts. So before we can actually forgive someone, we have to really deal with the hurt within. This might require you to acknowledge and validate your own feelings, maybe have somebody else who has professional experience to help you do that. But it's really important to digest and process your own hurt feelings. And the second point she makes here is to really see the countenance of God in the face of our enemy. This is like the whole, Jacob and Esau story, where, Jacob, after 21 years of separation from his brother and his brother wanting to kill him, he basically offers everything that he earned over those years, greets and embraces, Jacob embraces Esau, says, when I see your face, I see the face of God. Like being able to really say that and to really see the goodness in others, this is really important. Let's also read a passage from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, every time you begin to hate that person, realize that there is some good there and look at those good points, which will overbalance the bad points. So this is, again, another reiteration that really in order to love your enemy, you need to be able to see the goodness in others, not just focus on the differences or the bad points or the limitations, but try to find and highlight the goodness in each person. Let's also read from Jesus's words. That's why Jesus says, love your enemies, because if you hate your enemies, you have no way to redeem and to transform your enemies. But if you love your enemies, you will discover that at the very root of love is the power of redemption. You just keep loving people and keep loving them, even though they're mistreating you. So this was Martin Luther King Jr. actually quoting Jesus. But we're coming back to this same point. Love is the only way to change yourself and others. In fact, the love of Jesus has continued to impact the world 2,000 years later because of that quality of love. So I'm grateful to have these examples of love, of loving one's enemies through figures like Jesus, Father and Mother Moon, and Martin Luther King Jr. So the secret for the sermon today is the secret to loving your enemy. If I had to refine it down to one thing, I would say, let's read. To change an enemy into a friend is truly impossible without the heart of a sincere parent. Basically, I think the secret is to see them from God's parental perspective. In each of the examples that I shared earlier, when I felt the anger, the only way I could calm down was when I thought that God loves this person, despite their limitations. In fact, we're all limited, right? So, and yet God loves us. So if we can just remember that we're all children, we're all growing, God loves us despite our limitations, then it can help us to get over the immediate kind of hurt and the pain and the anger that we might feel, and to be able to see from this broader perspective of love. So again, the secret to really loving your enemy is to practice seeing each person from God's parental perspective. I'd like to end with one final passage from Mother Moon. Ladies and gentlemen, we must forgive one another, love our families and neighbors, and unite under the banner of peace. My husband and I forgave those who were unforgivable and loved even the enemy that could not be loved, all for the sake of Heavenly Parent and humankind. So the message is clear: forgive, love, and unite for the sake of God and for the sake of humanity. This week on Tuesday, September 21st, it's the United Nations celebration of National Day of Peace. So I felt like in honor of that kind of special day, and with the intention of creating peace in our families and our communities, let's practice loving our enemies and restoring difficult yet important relationships in our lives. Let's take a moment to listen, try to see them from God's parental perspective, and offer an act of kindness and love. If each of us takes one action towards reconciliation, we can make a big difference towards building a peaceful world. With that, may God bless you and your family this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Naokimi, for your message today. If you liked today's message, please feel free to share it with your friends. Click that share button on Facebook, or send it in an email to somebody you think needs to hear it. Let's go ahead and take a moment to reflect on this question: which relationships do I want to work on restoring? And while we're reflecting on this question, let's hear some live reflections for today. It is my pleasure to invite Susan Boashri and Stephanie Diaz to share some thoughts with us today. Hello, Aunt Susan and Stephanie.
Hi, Yoshie.
How's it
Hey,
going?
Stephanie.
Happy to see you here.
Morning.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this sermon and what came up for us. I guess for me, President Naokimi, I think the first thing he did in all of those situations was to find the angle that he could feel gratitude in, and I really appreciated that. And it's an easy way to kind of immediately take a difficult situation and find another kind of way to look at it. And Susan, what came up for you?
My mind and my heart are so full after this service. First of all, I just have to say how grateful I am to have met true parents. And, Reverend Corley prayed that learning to love our enemies is really the essence of not only unificationism, but Christianity and its long history. It's what Jesus taught. And the fact that we could meet this man and woman who have put themselves by choice in difficult situations over and over again and chose, not just put up with, they chose to love in these painful and difficult situations. I really feel like just that understanding gave my life a totally different trajectory. In a sense, understanding that this world is not what God meant it to be, and that these broken relationships between people need to be mended. It can be very empowering for us. It gives us this bigger sense of purpose, that we can be bridge builders, that we can restore broken hearts through the actions that we choose to take, just like our true parents. And that's pretty empowering.
Great. Yes. And Stephanie, do you have thoughts that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I relate so much with what Aunt Susan said in terms of gratitude, right? Listening to President Naokimi, I kind of chuckled a few times because I was reflecting back, I don't know, just floods of memories came rushing in and reflecting back. And I don't know, I chuckled because I realized there's no way that even a few years ago I would have been able to feel this way, to feel the gratitude that I have now, the maturity that I have. I'm still growing, but I could have never probably been in a space to forgive my enemies, right? Or thinking about who my enemies even are, right? So it was just kind of it was like a really sweet moment in a sense. So I definitely relate with that one, on Susan, just the gratitude I have for true parents and for my own parents, for our leadership across this nation, my elder brothers and sisters who strive every day to be better, and to teach us that there really is a better way to live our lives if we don't, hold anger or resentment and just try our best to move forward. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. President Alkimi mentioned it, but in her memoir, Mother Moon talks about the immense effort that it took to forgive, her enemies, especially before they visited North Korea. They had, she and her husband, really like spent so much time just dedicated to nothing but like reflecting and praying and let going of all of their resentment before preparing for that meeting. And yeah, I appreciate that loving your enemies is a great concept, and like the reality of it is like just difficult and effort. But yeah, anyway, thank you, President Naokimi, for that. And thank you for both of your reflections today. Yes.
Yeah. Can I say something else, Yoshie?
Of course.
Sometimes I think I've wasted a lot of time, sometimes thinking about who my enemy is, like kind of thinking up this ultimate historic, this difficult thing that I must restore. But the reality is a lot simpler, right? It might be more, I should more practically take care of the relationship with my neighbor, who maybe we disagree on a certain point and we've experienced a split, or reach out to that person maybe I said an unkind word to, or they said an unkind word to me. Kind of bringing it more back into my daily level, daily life, how I can live with this kind of heart all the time. The other thing that struck me as President Naokimi was talking is that sometimes I think, I'm doing well if I don't strike back out at somebody maybe who struck at me, and just kind of leave it at that. But what he talked about today is reaching out in love, reaching out in love to actually restore something. And it's a bigger step and a reminder that I still have more to learn and more to grow and more to practice.
It's true. Yeah. Sometimes in a, like a normal everyday back and forth, you might feel something, right? And in the moment you can kind of explain it away and be like, oh, I'm not hurt by that. That wasn't anything. But actually, I think he mentioned also, like, first you have to acknowledge that there is hurt within yourself. And then to take steps to like heal it. And yeah, it's harder, and it takes a little bit more awareness and intentionality in your relationships. But if you do kind of feel something but don't acknowledge it and just kind of move forward, there will always be that little kind of block in your heart towards that person and that relationship, unless you have reached out in love.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the challenge of the week for everybody. Set an appointment to talk with the person you want to restore a relationship with. And I'd also like to mention, if you would like to participate in this service by prayer or live reflections, please contact your local pastor. And also, if you have a musical offering that you would like to contribute, you can email music@nationalfamilyservice.org. Now let's have our closing prayer.
Now let's join Pastor Justin Okamoto for our closing prayer.
Please join me in prayer. Our most beloved Heavenly Parents, we thank you so much for this wonderful Sunday that we could gather from all around North America and also the world to really receive this important message, the sermon that was given by our president, Naokimi. He spoke on such an essential issue to our faith and to the words of our true parents and Jesus, to really love our enemy. And even though we've maybe heard this so many times and it's been emphasized many times, still the reality is in our own lives, it's very much difficult to practice often. And we often just continue to struggle with those that we disagree with, that we don't like. And sometimes we just leave it at that and we do nothing. But I really felt today we're being called by our president, by you, our Heavenly Parents, speaking through him, to really reach out, to go beyond just trying to forget about it, but really going out and loving that person and trying to understand that person and trying to really heal the situation. Because the reality is that we are all experiencing some kind of hurt in our life, some kind of pain in our life, and all of us are just trying to relieve that pain sometimes, and sometimes we do it in terrible ways and lashing out on others and trying to throw that pain and try to spread that pain to others so that we can feel less of it. But the reality is, Heavenly Parents, we need to see all people with your eyes, see them as your children, and really try to love them with your heart, Heavenly Parents, that we're all struggling and we all need somebody to reach out to us, and we all need somebody to listen to us and to help us to heal, help us to find our restoration of our own hearts, Heavenly Parent. So we really thank you so much. This message is really so timely, also just during this time when we're in our country of America and really all around the world, we're seeing so much division, so much encouragement actually to hate your enemy, to strike down your enemy, to beat your enemy to submission, basically, the different political sides. And we really want to strive to be above that, to be able to quiet down that loud message that we're constantly getting from our surroundings, and to listen to your voice that is telling us to be still and to really take time to consider who these people are, that they're our brothers and sisters and that they're worthy of love. We really thank you again so much for this wonderful time. I pray for all of those who are watching and listening, that they can really go out and to really not just be inspired by the message, but to take action on it, to go out and love somebody. So we thank you once more on this day, and we love you. And I pray and report this in my name, Justin and Kazuko Okamoto of A Blessed Future Family. Adieu.
And for our closing song today, let's head over to San Diego, California to hear the song Fighting for Me, performed by All the Above.
Is willing to fight when the going gets tough and my strength's not enough. I see you showing up like never before. This battle for my heart you took on from the start. You are the peace when my mind's at war. And
thank you all so much for joining us today. You can go to National Family Service and click Give to support this ministry, or type #donate in the Facebook chat. And if you gained something meaningful from today, please feel free to share this link to the sermon with your friends, neighbors, or coworkers. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and we will see you next Sunday here at National Family Service. God bless you.
Sound